Hey chocolate friends, Carla here with Opening Chocolate. This week I am bringing you a bar bits video, which I hope isn't going to turn into a National Geographic special, and you'll find out why I'm saying that. So it's about this bar here. It is a collaboration between Luisa Abram, the Brazilian chocolate maker, and a group called A.Mar Fish Project. They are focused on traditional methods of preparing fish and bringing those to the forefront. So this is a white chocolate bar that contains Bottarga. And I'm just going to open you up this one and I'll show you what it looks like. So I broke it so I could taste it. But you can see it's a white chocolate bar and it's got little tiny bits of reddy orange in it. Okay, in North America, we don't really use or talk about the Bottarga much. Here's what it is if you were to buy it. This is what it looks like. Kind of looks like salami or sausage or something like that, but it's hard. What it is it is a salted cured product of fish roe that is hardened. So fish roe, you think caviar. It's not the individual egg, it's the actual, so it's the whole egg pouch. And it's usually from this fish, a mullet, but it can also be from other fishes, including tuna. But most of the time it's from the gray mullet. Like chocolate, this is a food that has a long history of human use, and the process has changed very little over time. And this is where I went down into a rabbit hole. So, when I started researching Bottarga, I discovered exactly how old it was. And I ran into several articles that were saying the Phoenicians taught it to the Egyptians. But I just could not find any evidence of that being the timeline where the Phoenicians taught it to the Egyptians. So, conveniently, my husband is an archaeologist and a specialist in the area of the Near East. And specifically, he specializes in the Phoenician language, so he knows about their history, and he reads hieroglyphs and Egyptian and all of that. So once I start talking, you can imagine once I start talking to him about it, then we're both going down this rabbit hole. So what we find when we were looking and looking, we knew there was this hieroglyph of them depicted preparing the roe, but it took us a long time to actually find it. We knew that the Phoenicians did it this way. We knew that the Egyptians did it this way, but it took us a long time to find the paper that said that this is the order in which it happened. So what we have got, and I will put the links down below if you want to look for yourself, if you want to head down this rabbit hole too, if you're interested in history. So the Phoenicians are a group of people, but not really a cohesive group because they never would have called themselves a group. They're a group of seafaring people from several cities in the Levant or Near Eastern part of the Mediterranean. They peaked about their civilization peaked around the 10th century BCE. They may have also been referred to Canaanites before that. It was the Greeks who first called them Phoenicians after the fact, and that may have to do with the purple dye that they were famous for, and that's the Greek word for purple. But okay, this is how I get into the rabbit hole. So what we found was that there is evidence older than the Phoenicians from the Old Kingdom in Egypt, hieroglyphic evidence of them preparing mullet roe in this manner. The Egyptian Old Kingdom is from about 2600 BCE to 2130 BCE. So this is a long time before the Phoenicians are doing this. Now, why we think people say the Phoenicians taught this to the Egyptians, because the Phoenicians were very good at commercializing it. So there's evidence of them having like little fish factories all along the Iberian Peninsula and all just around the Mediterranean. They create these little fish factories where they were pumping out all kinds of products. So where we found one of the earliest depictions of Bottarga being prepared was from a tomb in Sakara, Egypt. That is, you may know Sakara from, that is where the step pyramid is. So that's the pyramid that doesn't have smooth sides. It kind of goes wonk, 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 like a cake or something. It's called the step pyramid. There is a tomb, or a mastaba, which is just the shape of the tomb. The mastaba of Ti or Tai near Sakara. And this guy his nickname was Tai the Rich. He was an overseer of pyramids and sun temples. He was up there, he was rich, he hung out with the royals. He has this big tomb. And we got a lot of information from a lot of details of what daily life in the Old Kingdom was like from this tomb, because he documented so much of it. So he had a couple of sons. One of his sons was the overseer of duck ponds. Another son was the overseer of royal manicurists. So just all this interesting stuff that we just spiraled down. I'm a generally curious person, so I just suck up information like a sponge. And this is just when I have my own personal expert in the same building with me all the time. It just got to be just information just coming in from everywhere. So we know that the Egyptians were doing it first. They taught it to the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians took it all around the Iberian Peninsula. They commercialized it. It ended up going back and forth across the spice route. We have, it's mentioned in Greek history in 121 CE. By the 5th century, Bottarga, or some etymology of that, is in several languages and is a standard term for this product. So there are, I'll try and put a list up here of different words. You've got Greek, Coptic, Arabic, Croatian, French. Korean, Taiwanese, Japanese, they all have this very, very similar preparation. Many of the words are similar. The Greek word is egg pickle, so that's kind of interesting. One of the earliest modern uses of the word Bottarga is in the first ever printed, what is considered the first ever printed cookbook in 1474. And I'm going to read this word because I won't get it right. So it was by Bartolomeo Sacchi, De Honesta Voluptate e Valentundine. That was in 1474, but many believe he copied his cookbook, plagiarism in the 1400s, from someone who was considered the prince of chefs, Martino di Rossi, and he had an Italian medieval cookery, the Libro de Arte Culinaria. I'm horrible at pronouncing things. That was in 1465. So that's the first modern use of the word Bottarga. So it's all over the place, and now we have it in Brazil. So what is it? What is this food that we're putting with our white chocolate? So it's commonly made from a fish called a gray mullet. And the hardest part of making it is actually extracting these pouches intact without breaking them. So it can only be done by hand. Sometimes they're massaged to eliminate air pockets or pressed. They are dried and cured in salt for weeks to months so that they become basically as a preservative, which you can see why this would have been good during Egyptian times, during the Phoenicians, Greeks, all the BCE eras where no refrigeration, so you have to have, it's a good way to preserve food for all of their needs. Sometimes it's coated in beeswax. Sometimes local ingredients are used, like in the Far East. They would have used things like soy sauce or added sesame oil, but really it's considered the Parmigiano Reggiano of the sea. So it ranges in color from a bright orange to a deep red. I don't know if you can see the color on this one very well. It's kind of an orangey red to a less appealing gray. They can be softer or harder depending on who's making it, but they generally have a very similar flavor. It's salty, savory, umami, velvety, powerful. I find that the Asian preparations are a little bit less fishy than the other ones, and how you normally eat it is you would either grate it, like literally like a Parmigiano Reggiano, or you slice it paper thin, and then you could eat it like a little appetizer or something like that. So I could go into way more detail because I spent a lot of time looking up Phoenicians and Egyptians and Thai the Rich and all of that fun stuff. If you are interested, the mastaba of Thai was crazy interesting, how much information he had in his tomb and how much we gleaned from Egyptian life from that tomb. It was just amazing to look at. So this bar, I'm not going to tell you what it tastes like because this is one of those bars that you have to taste for yourself. It is just such an interesting combination that it's one that you have to experience no matter what people tell you. And Luisa does white chocolate really, really well. She in general does a really nice, creamy, velvety, very smooth, not too sweet, just very appealing white chocolate. So you can see how that might go very well with something like a Bottarga. It's like a sweet kind of, if you imagine a pasta sauce or something like that. So I'm not going to tell you what it tastes like. If you ever see this, give it a try because it's crazy interesting. And that's my bar bits video. It's longer than a regular bar bits, but I feel like I kept it under control very well. If you want to talk more about Bottarga, Phoenicians, Egyptians, you know something cool about ancient fish preparation techniques, or something I should know about this bar, let me know in the comments below. I had so much fun researching this. It was amazing. And Luisa, thank you for making this bar because it was just fun to eat, fun to research, and I just had a good time with it overall. So I hope you liked learning about it. I hope you will join me next week when we look at another chocolate or chocolate maker, and I will see you then. Thanks.